What's up, everybody? Good late morning. Hope you guys are continuing to do well. And earlier today, we covered the primary stud, and I put stud in quotation marks, left guards that you could get in free agency this year. Although, really, what I mean is the guys you would have to pay as if they're a stud, and then you hope they are a stud, which is always the case in free agency anyway, right? But now we're going to move down a little bit. We're going to set our sights a little bit lower, and we're going to look at some guys who are going to offer starting level play. And right now in the NFL, to be perfectly honest, that's kind of a backhanded thing to say because starting level in the NFL right now for a left guard is a low bar to clear because there aren't many real left guards in the NFL at this moment. So these are the guys who are going to cost a lot less, but you're probably going to get a lot less out of them. That doesn't mean there isn't a good option here, though. Because quite honestly, even some of the guys we went over in the previous video, they're not sure things. So let's take a look at some options here. First guy, Liam Eichenberg of the Miami Dolphins, recent second-round pick. Spent his first initial time in the NFL at tackle, and then he moved inside. He has played a pretty decent amount of football over the last 4 years, worth noting. Decent amount of snaps. You take a look at Pro Football Focus, though, they're not a big fan of his play. Like this most recent year, they graded him pretty poorly, pretty below average, maybe even a little worse than that. Penalties were a big problem for him. And he played the whole year at right guard, so this isn't necessarily going to be super informative to us. Year before that, they graded him out really poorly, one of the worst qualifying guards in the league. Again, penalties, big problem. And he played kind of everywhere. He played a little bit at left guard, a little bit more at right guard. Mostly, however, he played at center. So again, maybe not the most informative thing in the world for us to look at this, but here are the numbers regardless. You have to go back to 2022 to find a season where he actually spent basically the whole year at left guard, and they graded him terribly. One of the worst qualifying guards in football. They only had like a dozen guards ranked worse. Again, penalties were an issue for him. Seems like he's just kind of a magnet for that. Only 2 sacks allowed, which is not the end of the world. 27 pressures allowed on 400 pass block snaps. Not good, but it's not awful either. So they're seeing something beyond the stats that they don't like. Because remember, this is the Dolphins offense. They have mostly been good when they've had their quarterback, and they run the ball very well too. So it's kind of interesting they grade him so poorly. So Eichenberg, you're definitely betting on him becoming a better player after he gets his second contract, which is unfortunate. Now, Botrack has a market projection for him. They come in at 2 years, $9.9 million, so that's $4.9 million per year for 2 years. It's a lot cheaper than the options we discussed this morning, but you can see that you're getting what you're paying for here. This is not a player you can rely on. This is a player who you might get and find out, oh, they're a backup. They're a backup caliber player. And I think that this market projection is probably reasonable. It depends on what you're looking at him as. If you're looking at him as a right guard, which is what he played last year, then I don't even know if I'd give him more than $2 million for 1 year. If you are looking at him as a left guard, 1, you're hoping that he's a lot better than he was a few years ago. And 2, you're hoping he can still play the position and hasn't forgotten the finer points of it. And you're also hoping that a big reason why the grade is so low is the penalties, because the penalties could be fixed. Because if you look at the other numbers, it's not terrible. We don't love it because Miami's known for getting the ball out so quickly, but there's something here, and there's reason to believe he's hitting his prime. He just turned 27 a handful of days ago. So there's something going on here, but I don't know if you want to roll the dice here. Next guy would be Robert Jones, another Miami Dolphin guard. So this is part of the reason why Eichenberg hasn't been at left guard, because this guy has been. So Robert Jones, also picked up by the Dolphins in 2021. Him and Eichenberg are kind of, connected at the hip there. He did not become a full-time starter until this most recent season, 2024. He did play a pretty decent amount in previous years, though. You go to Pro Football Focus, this most recent year, his first full year starting, they thought he was below average in pretty much all areas. 7 penalties, so penalties kind of a problem for him. Sacks allowed 5, which is also near the top. Pressures allowed, not that bad though. 28 in almost 700 pass blocking snaps. That's not the worst. We've seen much worse already in this series, and he did play the whole season at left guard. So there's something going on here. Year before that, they actually ranked him a little bit above average. They thought he was okay, mostly because they liked his run blocking, but he only played about 400 snaps, and most of it was at right guard, decent amount at left guard, 12 pressures allowed, 3 penalties. I mean, that's certainly a little bit more palatable, but again, how much are you going to take away from it? And then you've got 2022 here when they thought he was slightly above average. Okay, less than 500 snaps, almost all of it at left guard. Okay, this is a little bit of a rosier disposition, right? 11 pressures allowed in 280 pass block snaps. I can deal with that. 2 penalties, 3 sacks allowed. I mean, maybe this is the guy here. Maybe. Botrack has 3 years, 10.6 million. That's 3.5 million per season. I mean, that's not too bad, right? Bump him back over to left guard where he has played competent football previously. Now, this last year is a little bit concerning, but again, I would say I think that the pressure numbers are not that bad. Relative to how much he played, this is not anything that I think is terrible. I think the penalties are killer. I think he's a little bit unlucky that a lot of his pressures resulted in sacks. That can be a reflection on the quarterback as much as anything. So it's not a bad idea. And you're definitely saving money over somebody like Patrick McCarry, and you might get equivalent results. So that's not too bad of a consideration. Next guy would be Dalton Risner, formerly a Bronco, second-round pick from 2019. Has been a Viking the last 2 years, and he's kind of rebuilt his reputation a little bit. Now, this guy's going to be 30 next year. So, unlike almost everyone else we've looked at, age is becoming a concern. Oh, by the way, his name is pronounced Risner, not Risner, my bad. So Risner has played a decent amount of football in his career. Last year was the first year he didn't start at least 11 games, but you can see that he has been a pretty reliable starter for almost his entire career before then. Pro Football Focus thought he played well in 2024. They graded him really well for his pass protection, but he only played about half the season, and he played the whole season at right guard. So again, how much are we going to take away from this? How much are we going to glean from right guard snaps when we're looking at him as a left guard? And don't get me wrong, maybe we need a right guard too. But for the purposes of this video, what is he doing as a left guard? Well, you go back to 2023, about average PFF score, good pass protection, bad run blocking, no sacks allowed, 0 sacks allowed in almost 500 pass blocking snaps. Only 3 penalties, not that bad either. 30 pressures, that's not so great, but he's playing the whole season at left guard. Like, this is something. And, you know, Risner is somebody who kind of had the reputation for being a guy who started out his career good in Denver and got worse with each year that went by. And it seems like he's kind of come back from that in Minnesota since then. So maybe you're getting him on the come up here. Maybe he's on the rise. And they say you're only going to have to give him 2 years, 6.7 million, 3.4 million per year. I think that's within the realm of possibility here. That's also not a terrible option. You would be getting a guy who in this league, I think clearly deserves to start. Risner isn't a great player, but given the state of left guards in this league, clearly deserves to start for only 3.4 million, sure. Got one more guy we're going to look at in this video. It's Evan Brown, and if that name sounds familiar, it should, because he played for the Seahawks in 2023, but he didn't play left guard. He played center, and we didn't like him that much. So Evan Brown went to Arizona last season, played at left guard, and played really well, actually. He played the whole season, started all 17 games. Pro Football Focus thought he played above average. 66 PFF grade approximately. Mostly really good pass protection. Run blocking was a little bit more bleh, but this is a quality starter right now. This is better than most players out there. Plays almost 1,100 snaps, 2 penalties, 2 sacks allowed. Plays the whole year at left guard, doesn't play a single snap elsewhere. 20 pressures allowed. Remember, he's protecting Kyler Murray, who's not exactly a pocket quarterback. So you look at this and you're like, oh, that's appealing. Now, he is a little bit of an older player at this point, but he's actually younger than Risner, right? Like, age isn't that big a deal with Evan Brown yet. We're talking about a guy who's still probably in his prime and seems to be playing his best football right now. The previous year, he was in Seattle. We didn't come away with a very positive impression of him. Committed a lot of penalties. Missed a little bit of time. Only had 955 snaps. 3 sacks allowed. We didn't love it. 27 pressures allowed is okay, I guess, given how much he played. But he played basically the whole season at center. How much can we learn from that? I don't know. But clearly, Evan Brown has shown that he's capable of playing good football as a left guard. So if you got him, that is definitely where you'd want to play him. I don't think it makes any sense to get a guy who has played probably the best season of his career at left guard and then say, okay, we're going to move him somewhere where he didn't have his best season. We need to stop doing that. So Spotrac does have a market value page, 1 year, 4.7 million, which it's probably a prove it thing, right? That's probably what they're projecting here. They're probably saying, look, he had one nice year, but it wasn't an over the top year, and he had been a lackluster player in the NFL previously. And he's an undrafted player from 2018, so it's not like this guy has tremendous pedigree. So they're saying we're not going to mark him as somebody with tremendous value yet, even though he played, the way he played last year was not really worse than somebody like a Patrick McCarry. So we're going to say 1 year prove it deal, and if he plays well again, he probably gets long-term paid in the 2026 offseason. Would you be the team that gives Evan Brown the 1 year 4.7? I think it could be a little bit more, but I think this is the right idea to let him prove it. So those are the 4 guys that I see as being good starters, adequate starters, guys you're going to pay anywhere from $3 to $6 million a year to. And you can expect to get some level of starting caliber play. Is that starting caliber play going to be bottom of the starters? Because remember, there are 32 starting left guards in the league. Somebody has to be number 32. Somebody has to be number 31. Are you going to get something a little bit closer to the below average? Are you going to get average? Maybe you can get above average, but that's what you're paying for. You're paying for a little bit of an unknown. You're paying for a little bit of a question mark, but you are paying something and you are expecting to get something. All right. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming soon. Again, we're flying today, people. We are going quickly. We are pumping these videos out. Keep watching. Thank you for getting to the end. See you guys later. Go Hawks.